Hey, good afternoon, Ed.
Anant, good to see you again. Although this time I'm not sharing the office location with you, so we don't have to huddle together as the camera tries to decide who to focus on. So tell us about where you are connected from today, because you've got some
Oh,
cool stuff in
yeah,
the
yeah, yeah.
background.
Oh, obviously. I had a choice in being in a kind of boring conference room or here at IBM's Quantum Labs. Okay? And what you're seeing behind me is IBM Quantum One computer. Now, the reason you only see a case is that obviously all that intricate things behind it need to be super cooled, and therefore this enclosing chamber actually super cools it. But let me also show you or our listeners what uh, another of the previous generations of IBM quantum computer looks like. So it's just absolutely awesome to be here in our research facilities in Yorktown Heights, and just I got a chance to have a couple of meetings here, and I decided to have the podcast here.
Awesome, I love it. I will point out it does look like the Genesis device from Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan. Um,
Okay, HAL, IBM, no,
yeah,
Wrath of
exactly.
Khan, of course, not
Yes, exactly. I
baseball.
didn't go to 2000. It could be like 2001, but we're beyond that. We're now yes, we're going down the science fiction deep cuts. But we have to be true to our audience. So anyway, we made it back. We're doing yet another one of these things, and hopefully our audience is appreciative of it. But before we jump into it, let's talk a little bit about some of the things that we've been seeing out in the news.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, looks like there is yet another rev of the browser wars. We first had Netscape and at that time Microsoft Internet Explorer, I think, right? And then we had Firefox and Chrome and Safari somewhere, and then we had Chromium and Edge, and now we have another set of browser wars. Why don't you tell us, Ed, what are you hearing about it in SM?
Well, I mean, there's a couple of pieces to this. So first of all, I think that we talk a lot about the enterprise aspects of this, but the fascinating part about AI is that we're looking at something that is very close to the glass, so to speak, in terms of user experience, right? This is a user experience technology as much as it is anything else. And so obviously in 2025, when you start talking about, well, where is the user experience? Well, it has been in the browser for now a long time now. And so you're seeing all this experimentation, as you pointed out. Well, I'm calling it experimentation. That might be unfair to the people who are launching these. I think they consider them pretty serious product offerings, and then they they may very well be, but it's definitely sort of a bid to go and say that agentic interaction is going to be the primary interface point, but it's causing in addition to the question of does it provide some utility, it's raising some other questions as well in terms of AI in the loop, right? And so that was one of the things that you and I had talked about when we were looking at this was there's some new security implications from that, and I think that's some of the pieces that perhaps you're alluding to on this as well, right?
Yeah,
Um,
uh, absolutely. Yeah. It took me a long time to switch to Chrome from whatever I had, and even though some of these are Chromium, not Chrome, I'm not exactly sure that I'm going to switch to them. But I'm not exactly sure that I want to give my browsing behavior onto the AI agent. So there is a class of people who live on the edge code, not edge, Microsoft Edge. for whom it would appeal, but right now I wouldn't call myself as one of them.
Well, one of the valid things that's been raised by Simon Wilson and others is that um, it may or may not be yet a safe thing to automatically have an LLM reading the content on the page, particularly to treat it as a prompt. But even if we simply treat it as a source of knowledge, as you and I have talked about, a lot of what gets done within agentic loops within RAG-based content, things that are being retrieved from databases and such, you want to give the model some ability to act on that data that it's loading into its context window. There's the call out to our podcast. But
Yes, context window, absolutely.
exactly. But people are rightly pointing out that depending on how this is implemented, you're setting yourself up for potentially an automated prompt injection attack, and so a lot of good work has been done around this to deal with those situations. But this is new territory. It took us a long time to get browsers to some level of safety, and many people would still say it's not there yet, and many people browse without JavaScript enabled and so on, and in many ways feeding
Do they
this
get
into
to
an
see?
LLM.
Do they get to see anything without JavaScript?
Exactly. Yeah. Well, they don't, but again,
Plain old vanilla HTML with Angular P and slash P. Okay, very good, awesome.
exactly. So, who knows? Anyway, those are some of the issues around this. So it's super interesting.
No, awesome. And then, of course, the second thing that kind of caught my eye was a lot of advancements from Anthropic and MCP, and we're going to get into some of that with our guest anyway, right? But kind of converting into kind of code-first systems, it was quite impressive, and that's something that I thought I should watch closely with respect to kind of the announcement that Anthropic had made.
Well, they've done a couple of interesting announcements. And my sense is that a lot of this is really about following the tools where they go. If you look at what they did with MCP and some of the latest stuff that they just announced plugins today, which I think we'll probably talk more in depth on in a follow-on conversation. But the part here, this code first piece, is that you are seeing this pattern of saying, let me just have, let me have an agent generate code that then does, what it needs to. As code first approach is amazingly powerful and
Yes.
seems like this is one question you and I have had many times, which is it it's probably an inevitability, but the question becomes how many years till it's an inevitability, right? Like, is this, ultimately I can imagine in the future that when I ask an agent to do something for me, that it very rapidly writes the code, implements it, and runs it, but for those of us who try to do it, there's lots of reliability issues around it. And so that's one of those areas that I think is interesting to dig into. And obviously Anthropic continues to be, one of the leaders in this area.
That is basically LLM or the LLM agent become the outer loop, but the inner loop is always the program that executes precisely.
Yeah. Yeah. But the question becomes exactly in this case, what is that inner loop, created on the fly dynamically by the outer loop? And the answer, it seems to be in a lot of cases, the answer is yes.
Yeah, exactly. As long as it's not JavaScript that's supposed to run in my browser, then I won't be able to execute that.
I
Right.
mean, I think it's going to be, I think that, I mean, that's the other best practice that is emerging right now, which is, you probably, you're probably going to be running these things in some form of container or sandbox,
Yes.
because you get better results if you let the model go wild, doing whatever it needs to, but you've got to constrain the blast radius.
Very fantastic. So I think we should definitely have some of that conversation also. And I'm sure
Yeah.
that we're going to get into some of those because being safe around what LLMs are building and executing and interacting with your backends, etc., is something that you and I and the customers that we talk to worry about all the time. And in that context, who better than the guest that we're going to have come on, Alex Salazar. So why don't we get Alex on? Then I'll embarrass him a bit, and then we let him kind of unembarrass himself after that. Hello, Alex.
How's it going, guys?
Okay.
Alex, good to see you.
Good to see you as well,
Awesome.
man.
Awesome, Alex. Hey, so I've known Alex for quite a few years. He had a reputation of having done some fantastic work in security. The VC that I was working with, Peter Wagner, amazing guy at Wing, said, "Hey, you're thinking about some developer stuff around what I was trying to do. You got to kind of work with Alex." And I got to kind of know Alex in terms of the help that he provided for the company that I was building. And what I learned was not only does he know security, which of course he'll talk about, but he also knows how to hack the kind of developer ecosystem, which is what I learned from him. And of course, I think that what he's trying to do at Arcade is at the intersection of both of them. But it's just an absolute pleasure having Alex on. Ed, you've known Alex a bit too.
Since
Why don't
2011, back in the open source days, I guess the stuff that evolved into your company Stormpath. You were doing Apache project stuff. Apache Shiro, I believe, was the project.
Well, quite the throwback. Yeah, Apache Shiro.
Yes, we're very old school here, so
Yeah, back in the job authentication and authorization days. Yeah, absolutely.
Exactly.
Okay, Alex,
Well,
hey, why don't you tell us what you're doing and why all the praise that we're giving you is justified?
no, I appreciate it. Well, also, I will just say, like, I started my career at IBM, so I feel like this is a bit of a homecoming. So I'm glad to be on here. So I'm Alex, and my new company, Arcade.dev, we're the MCP runtime, and we're the only place that a developer and an organization can go to easily handle agent authorization, right? Can this agent on behalf of this user perform this action with MCP? We also make it possible to have very high accuracy MCP tools or agent integrations because hallucinations get in the way of things going to production. And we provide centralized governance so that the organization can have the confidence that the agents and the developers building those agents are accessing the right tools, the right MCP servers, and the right systems. So that's what we do at a really high level. But to really ground it all, super pragmatically, if you go to ChatGPT today, you can have it write you an email, but it can't send it. And that last point is what we solve for agents. There's no personal assistant agent today in the market, despite everybody talking about it. Why? Because it can't access your email and it can't access your calendar confidently and securely. And all those chatbots on everybody's websites that are super agentic, all they can do is regurgitate the knowledge base of that website, but it can never tell you where your order is. The reason is it can't assert that if I ask for my information, it'll give me my information. But if I ask for Ed's information, I can't get Ed's information. And we solve all of that.
Awesome. If you solve the OAuth on Gmail problem, okay?
Yeah, yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah, I mean, dude, like
Oh my
it took
God.
6 months of R&D, and we filed tons of patents to get OAuth working inside of an agent loop.
Yeah,
No,
yeah,
we had to
yeah,
invent it. Yeah.
yeah. No, of course, exactly right. Hey, Ed, go ahead.
Well, I mean, I was going to say, I think, the punchline you're getting at was the fact that the agents can't send that email is not a technology limitation. It's a security issue. It's a
Correct.
permissions issue, and
Yeah.
it's one of those things where it's like you could glue those together. Actually, plenty of people have, and inadvertently unleashed spam bots that delivered email to their entire contact lists and went crazy. So what we're really talking about here is the fact that we have this universe of capabilities, of tools that everybody talks about agents talking to, um, but nobody feels exactly confident in doing it. Sort of like, it was sort of like in that gap between the time when every college student was going and participating in those contests for building self-driving, remote controlled, radio controlled cars, or I guess not radio controlled, self-driving cars, toy cars. And how long was it before you actually had one, that you could drive around, which some people would still argue may or may not be the safest thing in the world. But there's definitely the need for this control plane. And so, it seems like that's part of the equation. It seems like what you guys have been thinking a lot about.
Yeah, absolutely. And to your point, I mean, we mostly talk to large enterprise, and we see some really common failure patterns, right? The percentage of agents that get started versus the percentage of agents that actually get deployed to production is stark. Most things die on the vine, and a lot of it dies on the vine because they can't get the security models working properly. And so, we see two failure patterns really commonly. The first one, the most common one, is you give the agent its identity. So a lot of people talk about non-human identity. So you give an agent its own identity, you give it its own permissions and its own scopes and roles, and then you call it a day, and that doesn't work because an agent is not an identity; it's an application. And so when a user accesses the agent, you now have what's called an access bypass vulnerability. And so if the agent, let's say it's an HR agent that can do compensation, it can read compensation data, and you give it a certain level of access. What happens with the intern now gets access to the agent? Does it get to see the CEO's compensation or not? And when you handle it, when you give an agent its own identity, and that's the end and all of your security model, you can't answer the question of what the intern can see. And so you end up taking a devil's bargain. You either create this bypass vulnerability where everybody can now escalate their privileges through the agent, or you dumb down the agent to the minimum set of permissions for all users, which is what everybody ends up doing. That's why most RAG systems have not been terribly powerful or successful in most enterprises, because they could only have the RAG system access, company internal public information, or why these support bots on public sites can only regurgitate the public knowledge base, but can't tell you where your order is. So the other pattern, which was common in early MCP,
is probably better indexed by Google anyway. And therefore, if you just MCPI kind of a general web tool, then you could probably answer it right there.
Yeah, correct. And then the other pattern, which people have seen, is what early MCP did, which was you give the agent your identity. And that is technically more secure, but it's very unsafe. And so I've seen Cursor try and delete my root directory. And thankfully it couldn't, because it didn't have the right permissions on my operating system to do that. And so it apologized profusely, which is very nice of it. But that was permissioning authorization at work. And so the right way to do this.
A sudo.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah, thank God I didn't have sudo access, right? And so the right way to do this is, you take the intersection of the two. The agent has a set of permissions and the user has a set of permissions. And then you take the intersection, and if both of them are allowed to do what you do, and if one of them isn't, you fail. Now, the nice thing is, this is what OAuth already handled quite elegantly. It just wasn't available in agents until we had to invent it at Arcade. And by the way, we're not geniuses. We stumbled into this, right? We were trying to build an agent ourselves to do site reliability. In fact, the last time I talked to you, we were building a site reliability agent to go diagnose a server crashing.
Absolutely. You were looking at all the log records.
Yeah.
And building some elaborate RAG system there. Right?
And it turns out nobody wanted an agent that had super user access to everything in their organization.
So you pivoted to that problem as opposed to. Okay.
That's how we got here. Yeah. We're trying to figure out how to get, scoped access to servers and reliability systems, and we had to invent OAuth for agents.
Now, one of the challenges, Alex, in anything that looks like an intersection of two privileges or auth is that it is less than either of the two, right? By definition. And so one of the challenges then is that you've got all these fancy demos that go around and say, look, CEO, we can give you visibility into foo and bar and everything else. And then they go into each of those systems with some identity. It's not even clear that what they can see in system X can correlate with what they can see in system Y because they are completely different, right? So isn't there an hidden problem in kind of mechanically solving it with intersection, which is correct? But then does it kind of avoid kind of really answering the problem that people are interested in, where they probably want some access, privilege escalation for some time to be able to answer those kinds of questions?
Oh man, great question. So I'll give you the first answer, which is, today, very few agents can even answer any of the questions. And so step one is just getting agents into production that can access the systems that matter, period, right? Nobody's giving agents access to SAP. No one's giving access to the CRM, and not because they don't want to, but because they simply can't get the security model correct. And so all you end up getting is this this fancy co-pilot just gives you advice, but can't do anything. And so step one, right? Have it go be able to read stuff, in a secure way as me, on behalf of me, but with its own set of controls too. So that's layer one. Now, once you have that working, depending on the use case, you might choose to provide the ability to do privilege escalation in a controlled way. Then there are many systems out there for that, for traditional use cases, where, I might want access to that server for this moment, and there's some sort of workflow.
I'm an SRE and I'm right.
Yeah. And for sure, we're already thinking about those problems today. And we do think the world's going to get there. But I would lump that into a level 2 problem, and everybody's still just trying to get to level 1.
I got it. Awesome. Wow. Sometimes you run to the next thing, not realizing that basic blocking and tackling is not happening.
Yeah. It's crazy how big it's become. I mean, MCP wasn't even around a year ago.
Yeah.
Right? And that's the thing I want to remind people of.
Right.
No one was even able to connect AI agents to other systems securely. And even in MCP, the ability to actually assert that this agent on behalf of this user can perform this tool call on this service, that's still not available in MCP outside of us, but we're the ones who contributed the spec to MCP, and that should be released later this month or by the end of the year. And so it's still early innings in agent land. That being said, I mean, the economic pressure on all the CIOs is so extraordinary that people have to find answers today. And they have to start building and get the stuff deployed today. They can't wait until everything is fully formed in the industry because their peers and their competitors aren't. And, you know, the CEOs and the boards aren't waiting around either.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I've got like five other questions. Ed, in the
jump
spirit
in
of
there,
politeness.
Anant. Jump in there.
Okay.
Yes.
Awesome. So the other thing that I noticed is that when you are doing Stormpath or when you are advising me, you said, look, the money is in solving all of these hard problems. The kind of hard problem that you solved was slightly different than the kind of hard problems you advised me was slightly different. But he said that if you don't get to the developers on day zero or day one when they're coding, then you can't just kind of bolt it on after the fact, right? So kind of intersecting what would be considered as kind of core enterprisey concerns as opposed to demo concerns, but kind of projecting them to when the developer is coding, shifting them left, is something that I've always appreciated, kind of sensibility that you have brought to bear. And I think that's what you're trying to do here also. So explain to me what all we discussed last 10 minutes, how does it relate to a developer who's building today? What does her life need to be as she's kind of coding and building agents?
Yeah, look, I mean, most developers don't care about security, right? I mean, they should, but they don't, right? You know, there's a Jira ticket or a linear ticket that says, okay, now you got to go implement the agent talking to Gmail. And so the real problem from their vantage point is they can't connect to the email system, right? They can't connect to the CRM. And so the problem that we solve
because
from
those
a
are
developer,
already protected, right? So it's not like free for all database that they just write a text to SQL and connect with this, right?
Correct.
There's
Yeah.
always
And so,
okay, I got it.
yeah. So problem statement number one is we're going to simply unblock them from checking off that Jira ticket and saying, oh, I connected to system A. The second problem that we're solving is with agents, the primary performance metric of an agent is not speed, it's not high availability, it's accuracy. And so a tremendous amount of our intellectual property is focused on the developer, getting them to get their agents to have high accuracy interactions with these systems. Ed, you mentioned the word blast radius earlier. That's exactly the right word. If we really are going to lean into the world of agents, we're getting away from RAG, which means it's not just about reads anymore. When we look at our pipeline, we look at all of our customers, they're trying to manipulate and mutate data. They're trying to edit things. They're trying to take actions. If the agent hallucinates the wrong edit, you're going to break the database, right? You're going to change, you're going to process an order you shouldn't have processed. You're going to wire money you shouldn't have wired. And so the agent having high accuracy in what tools it's selecting and the parameters it's predicting for those tool selections, it's incredibly important. And so because of the developer focus, we've put a lot of IP into that. And back to the point we made earlier about steps then and then prior to that Stormpath, this is the on-ramp for the organization at large
I got it.
to get safer, more secure systems.
No, it makes a ton of sense. I think one of the challenges that we touched on when you said developers don't care about security, but it's which historically has been true, and one would somewhat argue they do care about it, but they unless they're building a security system as opposed to securing an application, they're not going to be able they're not going to care about building the change management that's inherent in security. But that brings me to a separate point, which I was thinking as we're talking about this, which is that it feels like organizations, particularly enterprises, are not organized to bring agents into production. Like the question of which piece of it is handled by the developer. In many cases, a lot of these issues are not just whether it is quote unquote secure, but that security is in the context of accuracy. And so it complicates it immensely. What for our audience, and these are a lot of enterprises that are struggling with these agentic projects, and they're struggling with them from the standpoint of, okay, how do I build it to deliver value, right? And they start with some hypothesis that I can condense these things down and yield value. But then they start to then go and say, okay, I've been able to prove that I can, deliver value by, collapsing this process that used to be very labor intensive. But now the question is, can I deliver it, safely and reliably? And, who determines that? Like we spent the last, couple of decades with a web app operational model. Like, okay, developer builds this, and then we added containers to the mix, and then said when they put it in this container, and they create this Docker file or whatever, and then I give that to my DevOps person who runs it on top of Google, right? But like, I see part of the problem is it's just like that chain just doesn't work, and frankly, some of the people in that chain, this is like the first time they've ever dealt with this stuff, right? Like, who should be worrying about eval? Obviously, it's
Oh
the
man.
developer,
Yeah.
right?
Oh, what a fantastic question. Yeah.
Yeah,
Look, so let me play it back to you. But in my terminology, there's a massive paradigm shift happening.
Use an LLM to summarize the 4 minutes that he
yes,
took.
Yeah. But what you're calling out, what you're calling out,
I love it.
what you're calling
by the
out,
way, that would be a good plug-in. Hey, for Riverside, you should add a little thing in the side column that summarizes what people said and prompts with like the next question.
yeah.
Yes.
So
Anyway, go ahead, Alex.
yeah, what you're describing is what everybody's running into, which is there's a really big paradigm shift, and that paradigm shift is profound. It's both your infrastructure systems are fundamentally totally different now, right? Your teams, your team composition, the skill sets needed on the team are now totally different. Hell, how you do test, like how you simply test an agent versus a web app, fundamentally different system. And so, what part of we see a lot of organizations at different levels of maturity. When we look at the companies that are most mature, they have different teams, right? It's the AI ML teams, and they already understand non-determinism, probabilistic systems, which is the opposite of what everyone was trying to build for the last 30 years.
Right.
They operate with completely new stacks, right? The vendors of the cloud world are just like not that relevant in agents as much as they want you to believe they are. They're just different paradigms. How do you handle a hallucination, right? How do you do evals? 100% of our customers, literally 100% of our customers want this deployed in their VPCs as opposed to public cloud. That's the whole, like every part of the stack and every part of the paradigm looks very different than it did in the web app world. And so step one for most organizations is making sure that you've got the right talent in place. And
Yeah,
that
I mean, I think
talent has a machine learning background.
well, yeah. I mean, I think that's been honestly. I don't know whether that's true. I think that well, first of all, we've done a bunch of work here on this idea of the agent development life cycle, and actually we published a white paper that in cooperation with Anthropic on it that attempted to try to define these pieces. But I do think that a lot of companies have gotten themselves, a lot of enterprises, a lot of folks watching this, that assumption was, well, it's AI, so let me go to the AI team that knew a lot about machine learning and a bunch of things, and now we're in this, new, essentially hybrid integration problem space that involves, multiple layers of security and all the things that you're talking about. And I'll tell you, like, being an expert on, stochastic gradient descent did not prepare you for thinking about OAuth flows.
Oh
There's
yeah,
two
yeah.
different
Oh
worlds. In fact, I would
yeah,
argue
yeah.
most people I know that went to study that did
Yeah.
so because they didn't want to
Yeah.
be
Yeah.
doing plumbing around OAuth
Yeah,
flows. Right?
yeah. Let me disambiguate my statement. So,
Yeah.
look, every organization already has a pool of people that know how to build an application, and they already have a pool
Yes.
of people that know how to do, enterprise security and OAuth and all those things that have to happen. They already know how to integrate to things like SAP and Salesforce. Those people still matter. They're still very important. But what we see as a determining factor on whether or not an agent's ever going to go to production is whether they also have someone that has a machine learning background. Because
Yeah.
where these agents die between demo and production is ultimately inaccuracy. And obviously also security. But those two things can't really be separated. And if you've never dealt with non-determinism before, it's going to be a very steep climb. Can you do it? You can absolutely do it, but it's a steep climb. If somebody already has a machine learning background, they already know what an eval is, right? They already there's already some background on the oddities and weirdnesses of sending a question to a model, even if it's a structured output JSON thing. Like they know that where they're going to get back can't be trusted.
Yes.
Like, and this is kind of an important point. I will hit on again is like if I were to really boil down the paradigm shift, you can't trust the agent. You can't trust the application. And that sounds obvious, but if you look at how all other software was written before, you inherently trusted the application. And so how do you build software that's going to do high value, high security, high privacy operations when you can't trust the workflow engine that's driving it all? And that's the paradigm shift that draws in a different skill set like machine learning people to help figure out.
Yeah, I think that makes a ton of sense. But what I think is that where people are starting to become productive is in the situations where they that it becomes imperative for for those lines to start to blur. Like we saw this quite a bit for the first couple of years of this
Yeah.
stuff where it was like, oh, my AI team is going to do it. And it's like okay, and it's becoming more like app development. And now in the stuff you're talking about, it becomes more like understanding security perimeters and and understanding sort of untrusted and trusted zones of information and things. And so the long and short of it is, at least what I try to guide people around this is it's like yeah, you know uh, unlike maybe when you started to go and build your advanced analytics teams and you said, oh, I need some ML people, or I need a bunch of quants or whatever. Like it's not going to work that way. You're beyond your prototype. Like if you're going to put this stuff into production, um, you know, you're going to need, your security ops people being familiar with some of this terminology, and you're going to need developers that understand, what is behind the API, right? And
Yeah.
I think that's part of the evolution is
Yeah.
that is holding people up a little bit. Is just trying to
Yeah.
treat it as a compartmentalization problem.
And I'll add to that. I mean, so what, play back what I hear you saying is, which is you're absolutely right, is like the whole organization still needs to level up. Like regardless, like everybody needs to get smarter on this stuff because it's gonna, like this stuff touches everybody and everybody's gonna touch this stuff. I would also call out specifically, like I think the unsung hero in all of this is the CISO. Unfortunately, right now, everybody at these large enterprises, is rah rah, let's go build agents, and from the board to the CEO to the CIO and all the way down, and everybody's getting budget and everybody's getting staff, and the hardest job right now is having to be the CISO to come in and say no, right? To have all this momentum, all this pressure, all these public statements to the street and to the board, and then to be the person being like, red light, can't go forward. That's a tough situation to be in. But thankfully they're getting, now they're starting to get relief from vendors like us and other people.
Awesome. Hey, so I'll go back to maybe about 10 minutes back or 15 minutes back when you said, look, Anant, if you talk security, the developers' eyes would all, they'll do an eye roll. With, but if you say, I'll help you connect to the systems and I'll make things more accurate, and by the way, you just get security as kind of a side benefit, then I don't kind of shift their focus from what they need to do. So that's super awesome point. But hidden in that was that you have some magic trick to make it more accurate. And I'm yet to find something, some kind of magic trick to make it accurate. It looks like kind of real slog, get some inner loops that kind of keep trying. It requires some evaluation systems. It requires LLM as a judge. It requires, etc. So it looks like a kitty bag of tricks. And then why would you assume that the kitty bag of tricks that you bring to the table are kind of the best kitty bag of tricks for making something more accurate?
Yeah, man, what a great question. So, I mean, look, here's the hard truth. You know, there is no silver bullet to accuracy. It is just a slog. You've got to set up evals, which is a lot of work. It's tedious. You've got to set up really good tool definitions and parameter definitions, which takes somebody sitting down and thinking about it. You've got to go build retry logic, which is that inner loop you're talking about, which is keep trying and making sure that it catches hallucinations and retries with more context. We don't ultimately obviate the need for all of that. We provide you all of that out of the box so that you don't have to figure as much of it out. So like with evals, man, how do you do evals on tools, right? Well, we've got an out of the box framework. It looks like PyTest, like it makes it really easy. Retry logic, yeah, you can go build your own retry logic. But man, here's a pre-built primitive for retry logics. It's just already wired in. Just use it. Yeah.
Awesome. So what I'm hearing is that you're not pivoted once or twice, but three times. In building is first you started building a SWE agent. I think so. And they said, no. There's a real auth problem. Okay, let me build an auth problem. No. Before I get to even an auth problem, there's an accuracy problem. So let me kind of build that. But hopefully you're finding kind of the right value out there with respect to all of it. And of course, Ed, I don't know whether you know, but if you had opened up Wall Street Journal maybe about 6 months back or 7 months back, there's a big article out there which said that there's only one last mile left in agentic success. And that last mile is going to be solved by Arcade.dev. And so it is just awesome that not only does a company kind of keep pivoting and building tech that is really, really important for developers, and yet, of course, Alex is able to kind of make it important for the enterprise people, but also do it with a bit of a swagger and swagger, not to be confused with API, and actually kind of get the kind of ink that many of us would wish for at all. So just absolutely awesome to see all of that.
Oh, well, thank you so much. I appreciate it. Yeah. And also to get invited on a podcast like this, it's up there with the Wall Street Journal.
You've got to kind of.
With the highs come some lows, right?
The next, after this, if you get into your street rag, you'll feel great because it's much better than stupid podcast that you're on. Hey, absolutely awesome. Ed, any last questions or discussions? And I want to kind of wind it up with some observations.
No, this was a great conversation, and I'm very very looking forward to seeing all the pieces that you guys deliver around this, because it's definitely at the heart of what people are struggling with. So I think hopefully that for a lot of our listeners that they found this very interesting.
Yes, and what we are seeing is that obviously, again, as you pointed out, from CEO down, our enterprises are not short of what we really need to get on this agentic bandwagon. but there's much gap between thou shall and how shall we. And what you have opened my eyes to, and hopefully our listeners, is that shifting some of those things left and meeting the developers where they are can actually allow you to insert certain things in their stack that actually help solve some of the production issues that have been bedeviling the enterprises that we deal with. And hopefully with your leadership, with the success of your company and some of the other things that we and our partners bring, we can just raise the level of abstraction. We didn't peddle IBM in this particular podcast because it really was about kind of getting a slightly different perspective. But all of us are very much focused on making kind of an enterprise succeed is what we believe is really, really important. So absolutely awesome. It's great that you also removed your glasses. When you, I don't know what happened, but Alex, absolutely fantastic. Thank you so much again.
Yeah, good seeing you all.
Thank you, Alex.
That was great, right?
Yeah, it was an awesome conversation. I think one of the things that has really permeated a lot of things that Alex has done over the years has been from going from this developer approach. In fact, the piece of open source we're referring to that I was using when I first met Alex was all about something that you were able to go and drop in without changing your original code. So that's what I was thinking when we were having that conversation. Was we were saying developers hate dealing with security. That's always been one of the things that he's focused on, is how to drop in these things in a way that doesn't throw off the developer's workflow. But a lot of good topics that we dug into. I think that that piece of who and how do you deliver these products, and who thinks about the security considerations throughout that life cycle is something obviously people are struggling with, and obviously these types of, you can approach it from a systems standpoint, but I also do think that again, for a lot of our viewers, we have to think about what the architectural approach to building these things is, because I think that's where people are getting caught up on is what that overall architecture looks like. And then once you do that, I think things like security end up dropping into that.
Yes. The other thing that I got was that in the end, nothing matters if agents don't do what they're supposed to do.
Yeah.
Right. And you can make something that is highly inaccurate, highly secure, but in the end, it is as useless as anything. Right. So first, you've got to make things accurate, hopefully making it secure as we go along, and therefore kind of focusing back on what is the grab bag of things that will make things more secure. I think that deserves a bit more treatment from us, for our listeners, with respect to accuracy and eval and inner loops and what are the tricks of trade that I as a developer can not only do good demo but actually be confident that when that thing leaves me and goes into production, I'm super proud of that this will actually do what I wanted it to do.
Yeah, no, I think you're absolutely right. I think that that is the common thread that seems to keep coming back in different forms. So we definitely should explore that on subsequent calls.
Awesome. Okay, I know that. So if you recall, we had a fantastic conversation with Kate Blair on kind of the human-computer interfaces, and it really was H and then C. And our next speaker, okay, Jonas, whom also we have known for a long time, is going to reverse it and is going to talk about how do computers talk to humans as opposed to humans talk to computers in this overall space. So it'll be a absolutely fantastic discussion. Again, knowing very well that humans and computers will need to kind of coexist.
I'm looking forward to that. That should be a very meaty topic.
Awesome. And I want to end this with, so I got to surround myself with quantum computing, hardware stuff, looked at things that somewhere deep down have things like what are called Josephson junctions, which is how superconductors who come close to each other through some insulation actually interact. But it got me thinking. And I got some fantastic pointers. Is the world of AI and the world of quantum going to converge or at least intersect in some ways? And somebody had asked me this question about a year back, and I laughed and I said, look, if you go in New York City, where I will be tonight, you can get a Burmese Ethiopian cuisine. Why is it? Because the husband is from Burma or Myanmar, and wife is from Ethiopia, and therefore the two of them bring together. But for me at that time, quantum and AI was like that. They just happened to be two words that we used together. But I actually learned a lot today on how AI will actually help some of the quantum computers scale, because there's a lot of classical computational problems hidden in quantum computers and the other way around. So somewhere, somehow, I'm actually going to get some IBM experts and we're going to talk about the world of AI and quantum converging, because my mind was blown today.
That I look forward to that. I can think of yes. Let's make that happen.
Awesome. So with that, we have wasted a perfectly good hour for our listeners. And as always, Ed, why don't you do the honors and all the people who bring this for us?
Of course, we have Hannah, who has puts up with a lot of this as Hannah Price, as well as Milan, who corrals us all into making sure that we actually read all of our prep material and all of that good stuff, of which we would not be able to produce produce this without their help. Of course, Michelle, of course, as well. So we've got a team of folks who help us actually put this thing together and make us look reasonably presentable.
Awesome. No, thank you very much. You're always presentable, and I'm kind of reasonably presentable, Ed. For our listeners, it will be a big service for us. If you like what you hear, if you like the kind of content, put the word out. Okay. We want to make sure that we continue to bring. We're not asking for money. We hope we continue to bring this kind of material for you, which means that we need to bring you quality guests and quality content. And the more of you out there, the easier it is for us to attract more time. So with that, thank you very much, folks. And I can say good evening here because it's snowing outside in New York.
It's snowing?
Yeah. It's like, exactly. It's like 10th of November, 11th of November, but it is what it is.
So it was in the 70s today.
Oh, I know. I know. So I think that famous Mark Twain quote is wrong because it's colder in New York than it does in San Francisco.
Well, he was talking about the summer versus yes, yeah.
It's not really clear that it's his quote, but okay. With that, thank you, folks, very much.
Yes.